So I'm going to be talking a little bit about media theory and some media theorists, as well as talking about some events that are pertinent to that thesis I have on it. And that substantiates, I feel, my belief of monarchism or monarchy or some sort of despotic government where the rulership is consolidated and as small as possible, preferably one ruler, just like how a church is, ideally. I know if you're Protestant, that's different. Because speaking about media theory, Marshall McLuhan believes that, or posited that the medium of literature was very Protestant because it was a medium in which the populace received information in a very personal level and interpret it, as opposed to in Catholicism, you're receiving the information in a more peer-to-peer way. And there's more, I forgot the term that was used, but it was more aura to it. It was more, I guess, mystical in some sense. It was more special. Whereas Marshall McLuhan's theory was that people can just interpret the news however, and it becomes very incohesive from person to person. So there's slight disagreement, but definitely the mediums play a part because TikTok now has made the whole bite-sized interpretation or bite-sized delivery of whatever current events happening, and then leads to a bite-sized interpretation. When a lot of these current events need more of a sophisticated understanding, and I'll get into a premier example that I was just hearing Nick Fuentes talk about, and it was yeah, I'll move on. But here we see Neil Postman. I agree with what I know so far about his exposits in his literature or theories, and he said that politics, news, the media will become a performance, and I seriously agree with that because whenever I hear people speak, it seems like a virtue signal game. They're not willing to say things that go against the grain in terms of sentiment, and it clearly feeds into the tribalism that is seen from liberals, to be fair. And there always has to be this populist message where it's either the racists that are doing XYZ or it's the capitalists doing XYZ. And there's no nuanced take, at least in my anecdotal experience, there's not a sophisticated understanding. And it's always like this boogeyman. I think that's also why the midwit understanding of conspiracy theories. And it's whenever you try to explain, like, well, what about jewelry? What about this race, that race? They don't want to entertain that. They want to just stick to a vague platitude almost, where it's a vague boogeyman. People have this clear appetite to entertain theories in and of themselves, but once you start putting ethnicities, it's not till it's the Overton window is completely shifted. Now it's somewhat safe to talk about organized jewelry. And here we see Marshall McLuhan, and he posited what I said. There's Protestantizing of literature or medium or media, and therefore people become less adherent to a leader, dare I say. And I feel as though you need just this, in my opinion, I'm going to have to substantiate this later, but to be right wing, though you may be equal among God in terms of your soul, you're not equal in terms of intelligence, which is a clear point for advocating for a monarchy or something other than a republic, something other than a parliamentarian system, something other than a democracy. Because I don't think lower IQ people should be voting. They don't quite understand these sophisticated things. So there's that. And here we see a funny IQ graph I found. And yeah, there's a whole democratic phenomena. It's very clear how simple-minded they are because there's like that clear lack of, oh, I forgot that aside in here, but yeah, there's like a clear lack of understanding of being able to still use anecdotal. There's a clear lack of willingness to use anecdotal evidence. Like with the black issue, I was going to put a slide of a black person. There's like a clear allergic reaction to believe that black people, because of their blackness, because of IQ, they are more predisposed to commit crimes. And you see it so much in the Democrat liberal banners or cohorts. And it's, as I said, it's like a virtue signal game, and it goes further substantiating Neil Postman's thesis. And I feel as though I mean, isn't it obvious why you need like a one sole leader, why you need a hierarchical, a very strong hierarchical system? I mean, it gets to the point of, and here we see the Charlie Kirk. And this was a clear example of what I'm talking about. When Charlie Kirk died, it was either liberals were saying what they were saying and the Republicans were saying this, they had to dispel what their theories were. And I actually was entertaining both sides before. I'm like, oh, I see this being the culprit. And I was ideating, I was hypothesizing. I was saying, like, why wasn't there more shots fired? There was just the one shot fired. Why was people saying Israel was doing it? How does that even make sense when they're losing all their pundits because people are getting red pilled or whatever? They see the Palestinian issue, they're getting slaughtered, so they're saying, maybe we should start interrogating this alliance we have supposedly. And people were saying, well, Israel, how does that make sense? He was the last line of defense, really. I mean, he was holding it down in that camp. Why would they kill their last strong pundit? That doesn't really matter. So that's what I was really using as my prime example, because I mean, it was just a clear. These big events really show the nature of people's IQ and ability to interpret sophisticated concepts. And the Overton window was very impactful in that because questioning Israel is now open up. It's in the milieu. So therefore, well, Israel can be talked about now. And it's in the vein of Charlie Kirk. They did it because there's like a few clips where he's starting to barely question Israel. It just doesn't really make sense, that theory. So I even gotten a few debates about it at work. But nevertheless, I mean, it's just clear examples of why you need a consolidated group of leadership, if not just one leader, ideally. So that's my little tangent on media theory, and I want to read more about it because it's very interesting stuff. And I'll get to part 2 on this video.